All right, welcome to the weekend prime time, and we're going to jump right into our top story this evening. Breaking tonight, yet another major legal setback against Donald Trump's extreme immigration policies, all of it playing out in the dark of night with nothing less than the lives of hundreds of children at stake. A federal judge temporarily blocked the administration from deporting more than 600 Guatemalan children back to their home country, several of whom have even expressed fear about returning. Now, the suit was filed in the middle of the night by immigrant advocacy groups. The New York Times reports, quote, in its 25-page complaint, the National Immigration Law Center said that the children had active cases before immigration courts across the country and that their repatriation would violate the law and the Constitution. It also called the government's actions unlawful and reckless. Throughout Trump's time in politics, he has repeatedly claimed that his immigration crackdown is about going after the worst of the worst. But let me just read you the background of one of the plaintiffs in this case, a 10-year-old indigenous girl identified only by the initials LGML. She speaks a rare language. She's detained at a children's shelter in Texas. Her mother is deceased, and she suffered abuse and neglect from other caregivers. And our government was about to put her on a plane and ship her off to a completely different country. This is who the Trump administration wants you to believe are the worst of the worst. Joining us now is Efren Oliveras, the Vice President of Litigation at the National Immigration Law Center. His team filed that emergency request that stopped these deportations. Efren, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for making time for us tonight.
Breaking news tonight. A federal judge has blocked the deportation of over 600 Guatemalan children in the U.S., some of whom were already on planes preparing to be sent back. This case raises urgent questions about immigration, human rights, and the role of America's legal system.
We understand that you have stayed up over the last 24 hours working on this case. Just talk to us a little bit about what happened here. How did you find out about this, and how did you proceed to file the paperwork necessary to get this court order to stop? As we understand it, some of these children, I believe, were already on the plane getting ready to take off from Texas when the decision was made for them not to be deported.
Good evening. It's great to be with you all. I hope we're under different circumstances and for different reasons. But yes, my team and I and dozens of advocates across the country were up all night as ICE agents and their contractors were showing up at shelters in Texas, in Arizona, in other parts of the country, trying to pick up children with 2 hours notice, 3 hours notice in the middle of the night and send them to Guatemala. Children who had pending asylum claims, open immigration cases. We heard about this from the legal service providers, the attorneys for the children in their immigration proceedings, who started seeing odd things happen, particularly to Guatemalan children. For example, the calendar hearings that they had for next week, for next month, all of a sudden disappeared from the calendar. They just dropped. And that's a sign when a child is about to be removed. So that started to happen to dozens of Guatemalan children. So people started sounding the alarm, comparing notes, and that's why we got here.
The case centers on children, some as young as 7, many of whom have open asylum claims. Immigration advocates argue that sending them away in the middle of the night was not only reckless, but unconstitutional.
Efren, the timing here is pretty unbelievable. Sunday morning of Labor Day weekend, a government lawyer's quoted in Politico calling this, a first launch of a pilot program. What was the government's intention here, trying to do this in the dead of night on a holiday weekend?
The government's position at the hearing today was that this is nothing other than repatriation. Reuniting children with their parents is what they claim, at the request of their parents in Guatemala, and that this had been going on for weeks, had been in the works, and the planning had happened. The judge was very quick to call the government out that if that were true, why were they doing this in the middle of the night with 2 hours notice and rushing to get the children onto those planes? That's why we had to file this complaint at 1 o'clock this morning, call the court's emergency line, try to get a judge on the line, get an emergency ruling, which we got around 4:30 in the morning, and still children were put on planes. And that's what led us to seek further relief from the court and had a hearing today at 12:30 where the judge finally halted all removals of all Guatemalan children in ORR custody for 14 days.
To stop these removals, advocacy groups worked around the clock. Some children were literally minutes away from being deported when lawyers intervened. So why was this happening? The government claimed it was about reuniting children with parents in Guatemala, but the judge pushed back, questioning why this was all happening with 2 hours' notice, on a holiday weekend, and in the dead of night.
Can you talk us through how unusual this is to deport children, minors, by themselves back to, because it strikes me that this is so unbelievably cruel and shockingly cruel. I wonder if you could talk about that.
At the opening, Eamon showed a description of our 10-year-old client. There was a 7-year-old client that was being interviewed for this purpose. And we ended up not being able to include that child as a plaintiff because of attention span. We could not get a declaration from them. Right? It's a 7-year-old. I have an 8-year-old child. Those who have children will know a 7-year-old by themselves. They have the opportunity, they should have under the law, the opportunity to present their case in front of an immigration judge and have the immigration judge decide their case. That has been the law with bipartisan support for almost 20 years in the U.S. So to all of a sudden snatch hundreds of children in the middle of the night and put them on planes is just unconscionable, and I am just shocks the conscience, and it just so belies the government's, the administration, I should say, position that they're going after dangerous criminals in our streets. These are children. And what kind of country have we become that the most powerful and rich country in the world is targeting 7-year-olds, orphan 10-year-olds, and preventing them from having the chance to present their case in front of a judge?
And here's the shocking part. The U.S. is not even a signatory to the UN's Convention on the Rights of the Child, a treaty most of the world follows. That means America isn't legally bound to prioritize the best interests of children in these cases. For now, the children have a 14-day reprieve. The court has demanded updates, and the next hearings will determine if protections are extended. But advocates fear Guatemala won't be the last country targeted under similar agreements.
Yeah, I think it's a question that we're asking ourselves about so many things, about what kind of country we have become when we see stories like this, Efrain. But can you tell us about, or can you shed light about what the status of these children were? I mean, why did the U.S. government feel the need to go after them? And I don't know if you can shed light on their statuses, or at least some of their statuses, but are they trying to make a point of this, that nobody in this country is going to be spared from this kind of cruelty, or are they trying to specifically, in the case of these children who are Guatemalan, do something because there's a connection to the Guatemalan government? Why did they target these children? What can you tell us about the status that they had in this country?
As to why they are targeting children, or Guatemalan children in particular, I think it's nothing more than their agenda to deport as many black and brown people from this country. It appears that the government was able to get some sort of agreement from the Guatemalan government, and that's why they started with Guatemalan children. That's all we know so far. We haven't had an opportunity to conduct discovery in the litigation to understand better this pilot program that was mentioned today, or what their plans might be. We are concerned that Guatemala might not be the only country they go after. You know, we have this order protecting Guatemalan children for 14 days, but nothing currently protects children from other nationalities.
This story isn't just about immigration. It's about what kind of nation America chooses to be. Should children with asylum cases be given a chance, or deported in the dark of night? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.